Congratulations to Tesla on achieving profitability in Q2 and that leading up to the joining of the S&P. This is Greg for Tesla Fan Insight. Thanks once again for joining us. If this is your first time, welcome. If you're a repeat visitor, welcome back. We wanted to note that today's a special day. The fact that Tesla's been able to achieve 4 quarters of profit makes it actually eligible for the S&P. We've actually heard a number of people suggest that S&P might not be accepting, but we're doubtful of that given that Tesla's market cap really highlights why you put companies like Tesla into the S&P, because they're delivering leading edge products. They have a very large market cap that causes them to have a big impact on everything around them. And most importantly, the growth of that company allows it to make a huge contribution. And so all of these are great reasons why the S&P would want to have Tesla in it. So we really look forward to that announcement next week. So the focus of today's conversation is to kind of, one, congratulate Tesla and Elon Musk on what's been achieved. We also wanted to review, why did this happen and what might have stopped it? The argument we'd like to make is the biggest impactor on the success that Tesla is enjoying right now is China. Right now, if we want to know details on what's happening in Fremont, there are plenty of individuals nearby that can provide it. But the ability of China to fill in the lost 20,000 vehicles between what Fremont was able to produce prior to the virus shutdown and then the subsequent ability to not only deliver vehicles in large numbers, but also another issue that pops up is that because Model 3s are the primary selling vehicles that are in China, there are some vehicles that are being sold, Model X's, S's, and I believe Y's, all of which are being shipped from the United States. We actually now have a situation where the folks in China are really shaping sort of the future of the company, especially if we get another shutdown, which seems imminent and going on in California right now. So we wanted to sort of review why it is we think that they made it, which is the top secret weapon of China and the fact that China is sort of blowing out the lights. Robin Denholm of the chairman of Tesla has indicated that Elon shared with him or her that there was a trajectory of 2,000 vehicles a week and then 3,000, and at this point the scheduled delivery is supposed to be 10,000 vehicles a week coming from that facility. I thought there was some doubt about the contribution that we'd be getting from the folks in China. In particular, what I was concerned about was the fact that, number one, you have a lower profit margin on the vehicles, but the fact that you have lower raw material costs in China affected that as well. Or raw material or the supply chain costs, according to Elon, end up being half of what it is in the United States. So from labor to all these different components, we're seeing better numbers on what costs were in that space. Number two is what I want to call speed. It took approximately 9 months to build the first factory there, and they immediately began the process of building out sort of phase 2 of the Shanghai facility. And that resulted in having a much higher production rate than the general world had expected to that point. So we definitely have everything about the secret weapon that China is to thank for why it is that Tesla was able to exceed the delivery not only production numbers, but delivery numbers by 20,000 vehicles. And when we went to look at our local service facility in Tysons, I thought that there were probably 10 or 20 Model Ys sitting there unsold for whatever reason at the end of the last quarter. But I was impressed that inventory seemed to be maybe a third to a half of what it should have been in that facility on a normal period. And there were no issues given that they were moving so many vehicles in other places like China that it really made up for the bad numbers. So we want to, again, congratulate Tesla Shanghai and China. You're doing a great job, and I really think it's saving the company's bacon right now. And we look forward to that continuing to be the case as Fremont is able to start picking up the slack once again at full bore, at full production. One of the questions that sort of pops up is we're in a period right now where we're waiting on S&P entry and the stock price is scheduled to pop for Tesla. And then after popping, it's expected that that price will sort of decline back down from a fairly high peak driven by the demand for shares. Now, we threw out some general numbers, but there's at least $40 trillion sitting in the coffers of S&P or S&P related entities that have to acquire shares. So I've noticed that a lot of questions being posed by our viewers regarding this, focusing on the fact that, well, if let's say 3% of $40 trillion is the share count that's needed to satiate the S&P, where are those shares going to come from? And I think I asked a banker about how this was going to work, and they explained that it was simply going to arrive because as the price of the stock rises, there are people that are willing to sell their shares in order to fuel this S&P process. And the only question then is at what price are they going to get off those shares? And that's one of the reasons why the stock price is fairly high right now and is expected to go a lot higher after the good earnings that we had today. So the other thing I should note that I'm expecting to happen here is that now that we've gotten to decent numbers, we now have a situation where the market makers sort of take over the deal. We've noticed that when there's sort of guaranteed money on the table, these folks will find creative ways to make sure most of the money that comes from this actually goes to large firms or market makers. And one of the main techniques we've seen for doing this is to have most of the movement of the stock price occur after market, which is between 4 p.m. and 8 p.m., and pre-market, which is from 4 a.m. to 9:30 a.m. So if the stock makes a huge run prior to market open, and then when market does open, all you see is perhaps a pullback slightly or maybe a flat. It's really one technique that we've been impressed by seeing market makers use to sort of control who gets the profits from a company successfully executing their plan, as is the case for Tesla right now. So the next question that comes up is, now that we've got these good earnings, what's the next stages in the process? Well, the next stage is that we're going to have S&P waiting for S&P's announcement, and once we have that announcement, there's theoretically a 5-day period that could be longer, during which a large number of firms are going to have a chance to adjust themselves accordingly in the form of acquiring shares to be compliant with the rules of the S&P. So I'm kind of fascinated by this because of what I just described. It's possible that the stock price of Tesla becomes a very, very big number because everyone knows that there's a requirement that the large firms that control S&P funds have to find shares, and the way they're going to find their shares is by offering high prices to those who own them. And the only question now is, how high is that price going to be? And is that inordinate price going to have any other impactors that we haven't thought of? And so we'll see what happens with all of this. But for those of you who own small and large blocks of shares or options, congratulations, because obviously how the prices work out is going to be directly related to all of this. Hence why today has just been a huge day in preparation. We'd like to encourage you, if you haven't gotten into the stock trading, etc., to consider some options because I think it'd be a lot more profitable than the stocks. The one other thing we wanted to review today is the fact that we've been involved in acquisition of SpaceX shares, and it turns out that we do have a source that has been providing us with pre-market or pre-IPO shares, and it was suggested by one of our Patreon supporters that we mention that as well. If there's any interest, we'd be happy to work with folks who are thinking about this as well. At any rate, we wanted to thank you for joining us. Again, congratulations to Tesla, congratulations to China for helping to facilitate this successful moment. We're really looking forward to the impact on stock as we roll into the S&P in this process. And don't forget the charities if you've made a ton of money in the process. This is Greg for Tesla Fan Insight. Please remember to like and subscribe and hit the bell icon so you don't miss anything when we're presenting a new show. Best of luck to all of you. Tschüss German, au revoir French, lehit rohot Hebrew, choda hafez Farsi. In Jamaica we say enough respect, walk good man. Thanks once again for joining us. Have a great day and bye for now.